Welcome to episode 59 of Ghostcasters Podcast. I'm your host, C.G. Mosley. I'm a published author, and I am joined by my longtime friend and co-host, Adam Boyette. Adam, as I told you before we got on here, I've drank too much, and I'm still drinking. So, whatever happens, happens. How are you? Have you been drinking anything?
I have been drinking Diet Dr. Pepper. That's the only thing I've had since I've been home.
That's not what I've been drinking.
Yeah, I understand. You probably
just drinking
rum.
I'm drinking rum because I'm a damn pirate.
I know. Hey, we already talked about this. Now, I did have an interesting conversation this week, and I needed to talk to you about it, but I got asked if we had an EMF reader that I met.
Well, of course we do.
I got met by somebody in your old hometown who says they believe they may be in a house that's haunted. So we might want to talk about that.
So can we go over there?
Well, we might be able to. I'll tell you more about it over, but it was the strangest conversation. A lady I work with goes, "Are y'all really having this conversation right now at work?" And I'm like, "Yeah." They're like, he asked me about a spirit box, if we had a spirit box, and I said,
no, I don't believe in spirit boxes.
Well,
I don't. I mean, there's a lot of people that do, but I think they're a bunch of crap, personally. But
anyway, so we talked about
if they want us to come check it out, hell, we'd be glad to go check it out.
Yeah.
So is the house in Stonewall?
It is. Not too far from the church you attended either. Not the road the church was on, but the next road over going towards the Piggly Wiggly there.
So was there a story behind the house where that backs up there?
It's not their house. It's not the person I was talking to's house, but the other person was telling me that they were at the house the other day, and the person said, "I believe my house is haunted." And
interesting.
Said these doors just keep closing randomly. He said, "Well, is your air conditioner on?" He's like, "I don't have essential heat and air in here. I have window units." So,
wow. Well, hey, get us some information. We'd love to go check it out. Maybe they'll let us come there late in the night or something.
Not every week do my ghost hunting skills come into play at work, but they did this week.
We really don't have. I mean, let's be honest. We really don't have ghost hunting skills. We like to talk about ghosts, but I don't really think we have what I would call ghost hunting skills, because like I said, I really believe that the majority of people that do these investigations on so-called haunted houses or sites, I think a lot of times they're just trying to find something that makes them, they're trying to make something out of nothing. Just to back up, because they want to believe it so badly. And we're not going to do that. We didn't do that at Mary Hope. We didn't do that at Cemetery. We didn't do that at Devil Worshippers Road. We just don't do that. If something happens, it happens. Like when I was at Mary Hope, we had some crazy readings on the EMF reader that we have not gotten in other houses. And I heard a knock, a very distinct knock on the wall that I can't explain it. I don't know who did it, and if you haven't heard it, you'll have to go back and listen to the Mary Hope episode. But I believe that stuff does exist, obviously, or we wouldn't be doing this podcast. But I also believe that a lot of the stuff that so-called ghost hunters, ghost investigators, some of their evidence, and I'm using air quotes here, a lot of that stuff is just crap. It's not real. So I don't even know how the hell we got on that.
I understand, because we were talking about the spirit box there. He asked me if we had a spirit box. So, I had explained to somebody what a spirit box was, and I explained I really didn't know what it was before we started doing this podcast, but I did tell him we had an EMF meter. I told him the story about Lady Gaga and her $50,000 EMF reader.
Right.
That ours is not quite that fancy. So
ours is not quite that expensive.
But anyway, so that was interesting. It's not usually when I'm at work, people talk to me about work things. We do talk about like college football or different things like that. But usually the topic of ghost or podcast don't usually come up that much. But it did this week. So I thought that was an interesting thing to talk about.
Okay. All right, well, with that, we'll get into our usual segment of ghost news, and I'll go first because the longer I sit here, the more I'm going to drink. My article, or my story, comes from WNCT 9, which is a CBS affiliate in Greenville, North Carolina. And the title of this story is 1 in 6 people believe that their house is haunted, according to a recent survey. So the article begins with, do things go bump in the night in your home? A new survey from All Star Home reports that 1 in 6 people think so. More than 2 out of 5 Americans have experienced a haunting or unusual occurrences within their home. Out of that figure, 42% of them have felt the presence of someone or something they could not see. 37% heard unexplainable noises like footsteps or voices. And 19% have seen apparitions or ghostly figures. Now, a lot of people, when they're looking for the boogeyman or whatever, they immediately run straight to and look underneath their bed. But here's the thing. 49% of hauntings or paranormal activity in homes seem to occur in bedrooms. The living room is the second most haunted at 26%. The kitchen is in third at 23%. And finally, the hallway and or stairs ranked at 21%. And surprisingly, the basement area, which you would think is hella haunted, is ranks only at 12%.
That's quite surprising. I do agree.
That is surprising. I mean, it's not that surprising to me that the bedroom is up there at the top. I don't know if I would have guessed that it would be number 1, but we do hear about a lot of paranormal activity occurring in bedrooms. Now, the most common paranormal experiences that happen in order are strange sounds, animals acting weirdly, ghosts, flickering lights, strange voices, and even unusual smells.
Maybe those people are going to the bathroom. Maybe they didn't list the bathroom as one of those things there, but
that's interesting. You're right. The bathroom was not listed.
I've experienced at least 3 out of those 5 things or 6 things there in the bathroom recently.
So people tend to pray when these occurrences happen. As at least 19% of the surveyors said that they do, and some went on to research the house's history. 11% of people did that, and then some people completed a cleansing ritual, and 11% of people did that. Strangely enough, there are people who could love to live in a haunted home. 24% of those surveyed said they would purchase one and would even pay an average of almost $250,000 for it. So over 1,000 Americans were surveyed. Sorry, I'm telling you, I drank too much. Did I mention I was drinking too much?
Yes. Repeatedly.
Just making sure. So over 1,000 Americans were surveyed in August of 2023 with an even amount of binary genders participating. I don't know why I had to throw that in there. But anyway, that's an interesting story. 1 out of 6 people claim that their house is haunted. Do you think, is that kind of high to you? I thought that was pretty high.
No, that's really not that high to me. If you think about it, 1 out of 6 is something like 14%, 15% of people, and I don't think that's that high. I think a lot of people believe in ghosts and hauntings and things, so I don't think it's as high as what you think it is. So that's what I would say. I don't think, for the most part, I think a lot of people believe in hauntings. Lots of people believe in spirits, apparitions, ghosts, or whatever. So I'm not surprised it's that high. I mean, if it was like 30-40%, I think that would be more surprising to me. But like I said, 15% doesn't seem to be that high to me.
Okay, well, that story this week, I would say, was probably rated G. And your story is kind of like my story last week. I would say this one is more rated R, or at least a high PG-13.
It's pretty out there, man.
We don't have a good Cardi B story this week, but hell, I think we got something pretty damn close. So
we got.
What's your story?
Instead of Cardi B, we got Palawa Flores.
Paula, man. I think that's Paula. Yeah,
okay,
damn, you can't pronounce a name.
Well, no, I'm gonna say something now. I think there was me and you used to watch the show Big Brother, and I think that was like one of the girls' name was Pow Pow, so I'm thinking
I remember.
Paola. But anyway,
I remember.
I think, but I'm not sure, so we'll say Paula. That'll make it easier on me. Paula.
And for the record, I'm still watching Big Brother.
All right, I've not watched a single episode this year, so
I've been watching, and
okay.
Anyway, this ain't a Big Brother podcast. Go ahead.
Okay, well, anyway. So the title of this article is that I had sex with a ghost every night for 20 years, but I dumped him when I saw he had fangs and the face of a gargoyle.
Okay, stop.
Yes.
She had sex with a ghost every night for 20 years?
She claims she had nightly romps, and he had a ghost with the fangs and the face of a gargoyle for over 20 years. So, the story...
My God.
I hadn't been married 20 years, but I can tell you that me and my wife have not had relations every single night for those 20 years. So, she was getting more action than I was that way, so...
Well... Well, I haven't either. I mean, I don't know of any married couple that can say...
They weren't married. They were not married. They never entered into matrimony. She didn't marry this ghost. So
well, that's probably why. I mean, that's probably why. She was trying to get him to marry her. And that's why she was doing it every single night. Because I'm going to tell you, when you get married... Because I'm going to tell you, when you get married, it sure as hell ain't happening every night. It just ain't.
Well, let me go on with the story here, and we can talk about marriage, and...
Well, you brought it up. Hell, you the one that said... You told about your personal romps in the bedroom.
All right, and so... Anyway, she claims she had those nightly romps with the ghost with fangs and gargoyle. We said she was from Colombia there, and she said the relationship started when she was very young. She said the ghoul visited her every night where she slept. She made these claims on a TV show in Colombia that is on the state-owned channel Canal 1. It's called Sin Carrieta. I'm not quite sure. My Spanish is not...
Looks like Carreta. Sin Carreta.
Okay. All right. She also claims he always initiated it, and she ended up falling in love with him with the charismatic specter and joined a 20-year-long passionate fling with him. She told him, said, one day I was laying down, I felt a hand move from my feet to my chest. It was strange. I was scared.
Wow, hey, that's nice. So he started with the feet.
Yeah, he was obviously had a foot fetish. So
he started massaging her feet and moved up to the chest.
Yes, exactly. That's what she says. She said that she moved on up there. From that moment on, he started coming to me like a spirit to have sex with me. Exactly. That's what she said. He started coming to me. But anyway, so she considered herself a loving partner to her ghostly lover for over 20 years until she eventually saw his face. She explained he was a very big man.
That's what she said.
But the day I caught a glimpse of him, he had fangs and the face of a gargoyle. After seeing his scary look, she stated she didn't want any further contact with him because he frightened her.
Well, that's kind of shitty.
Just let that be a lesson to all the men out there. You can have sex with someone for 20 years, but when you finally reveal your face and they see you're ugly, she's going to dump you.
Yeah, what a superficial B word. I mean, I don't want to say it, but damn. He can't help his goddamn fangs.
Yeah, well,
I mean, he's a damn ghost. It's not like he can go to the dentist and get something done about it. I mean, are there ghost dentists?
No, I don't think so. However, one strange turn in this story, there was a psychologist that they interviewed, and I can't say their name. It's Marteza Montelegre or something like that.
Close enough.
She said Paula's case is not that all uncommon. So she said demonic cases are extremely isolated. lady. So this doesn't happen a lot. However, another psychologist, which is a parapsychologist, which I guess is a psychologist that looks like the therapist of ghosts or something along those lines. So I guess that would probably be more along the lines of somebody that studies these type of things. And I can't say his name for anything. It's Jairo, Jaro, I can't say it, but his last name is
Sure.
Urbex. He believes the account is credible and that she was probably in a relationship with what they call an incubus. The parapsychologist goes on to say an incubus is a demonic entity that is a low astral entity, and we describe all those that looks like maggots as low vibrational. He continues to say they specialize in grabbing people and taking their energy. People were complex in one local complex and one local commented it must have been a synthetic spirit, or another rodent. I've also fallen in love with a couple of ghosts. So these people go on and talk about it, and then somebody else says people were getting crazier. They tell her the neighbor with a sheet with holes in it. And another one said that this spirit was no saint. So just some comments there, but just a really, really strange story.
Bizarre.
Yeah, and like I said, it's just one of those things. So, really weird. It's funny that the last 2 weeks we've had stories about ghosts wanting to have sex with people. I looked at her picture, and since she was so superficial, she wasn't the best looking person either. But she wasn't horrible looking. I could.
That was mean, Adam. She's not that damn bad.
That's what I'm saying. I
have been drinking a lot. Maybe I'm not seeing her the way you are.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying, I don't think that she is no Cindy Crawford, she's no Kim Kardashian, she's no whatever your value of beauty.
You know who I liked when I was a kid?
Baby Spice.
What the hell? No. That is off the wall as hell.
Well,
I was a big fan of Kathy Ireland.
I do remember her, yeah.
Do you remember Kathy Ireland?
Yeah, we grew up in the age of the supermodel, though, like Cindy Crawford, Elle McPherson, those type of people. So.
Yep, we did. Is that all you got, Adam?
Yeah, that's it for the story, yeah.
Okay.
I'm just waiting you to guide to the next part there.
All right, well, it's time, I guess since we're done with ghost news, it's time to transition into Adam's terrifying tidbits segment. So, Adam, it's a new month. It's actually officially the spookiest month of the year now. We're in October. So what do you have for your terrifying tidbit for this week?
So I covered this one briefly last year, but I'm going to go back into it a little bit more because these are some stories that deal more with Halloween candy. So growing up, like I said, we grew up in the age of the supermodels and things like that. And one of the things I remember as a kid, what kind of stories did you hear about candy?
About the razor blades and needles in it?
Yep, we're going to talk about some of those as we go throughout the weeks there, because some of this stuff has specific things into Halloween and stuff like this. So,
it was crazy as hell because the hospitals would open up and be like, hey, bring your candy so we can x-ray it before your kids eat it. Do you remember that?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's crazy as hell. Because honestly, there was not really a whole lot to back. I mean, did that really ever happen? Is that what you're going to get into?
Some of it has. So, one of the ones that we're going to cover first is a story of a 8-year-old named Timothy O'Brien from Houston. He died after consuming some cyanide-laced candy.
Oh my God.
That he received during a Halloween trick-or-treat. However, after some investigation by the police, guess who did it? His father.
Parents.
Yes, his own father. His dad, who was named Ron Clark O'Brien, had recently taken out some life insurance policy on his kids and hoping to cash it in on their deaths. To make it look like it was a neighbor who killed him, he also had given some cyanide-laced pixie sticks to 2 other kids beside his own. Luckily, the other kids didn't eat the candy, but Timothy did, and his father was eventually executed for his murder.
Well, he should have been.
So let me tell you just a little bit about this story here. All right, the story that I'm reading with comes from the Crime Wire, and the name of the story is "Pixie Sticks and Poison: The Murder of Timothy O'Brien." This was his father's last words before he was executed. What is about to transpire in a few moments is wrong. However, we as human beings do make mistakes and errors. This execution is one of those wrongs, yet doesn't mean our whole system of justice is wrong. Therefore, I would forgive all you have taken part in any way in my death. So, he spent a year on death row. On Halloween night in 1974, he was in Pasadena, Texas. He had dinner with his friends. They had lived in Deer Park, but they had come to the area of Pasadena because it was seen as like in the article they call it the swanky area, but it's like the more valuable where you get the best candy and that kind of stuff. This man, he was an optician, so I guess that's like a person that does the eye stuff for glasses and stuff like that. But he went trick-or-treating with his son Timothy and his daughter Elizabeth. He volunteered to take them trick-or-treating. He went with his friend Jim Bates and his children, even though there's some debate on whether or not that Jim Bates' daughter went or whatever, but the wife stayed at home when they went out to go trick-or-treating. So it was raining that night. They only covered about 2 streets before calling it a night. One house had its porch light turned off, but the kids knocked anyway. No one answered, but they heard the children down the streets, and Ronald O'Brien lagged behind. Eventually, he rejoined the group, and he had 5 giant pixie sticks. He told them that rich neighbors were handed out expensive treats. In 1974, a giant pixie stick was 21 inches long and filled with sweet and sour fruit-flavored powdered sugar. They later say that one of the things that gave this up, that this is what he had done, is that the pixie sticks actually...
The pixie what?
Pixie sticks. I'm having a hard time talking. I'm sorry.
You said pixie dicks.
Okay.
But
I
go
may
ahead.
have said it, but anyway, so... the pixie sticks actually showed up on the sleeves of his raincoat. That's one of the ways they actually did it. He gave the candy to another girl named Whitney Park, who they met trick-or-treating. So he gave 2 to his children, 2 to the Bates children, and 1 to this there. They all had gone to the same church, the Second Baptist Church of Pasadena. Ronald O'Brien had added 2 inches of potassium cyanide to the powdered candy, which issued a guaranteed death sentence to any of the 5 children who consumed it. Why is kind of interesting. He wanted to make law enforcement believe that a Halloween sadist somewhere along the line of trick-or-treating had given out the poison candy, and to cash in on the life insurance policy that he had really done. He really only wanted to kill his children. Like I said, he did go back. Now, this is the story this is kind of part of the story where it just shows how he was trying to present these to his kids to kill him. He comes back. His wife goes to visit a friend. He went and got the kids ready for bed. He told each of the kids that they could have 1 treat to enjoy before bedtime. He encouraged the children to take the pixie sticks, but his daughter refused and chose a different candy. However, Timothy pulled out a sucker, and O'Brien said, no, you don't have time to eat a sucker. Try this pixie sticks. And O'Brien took out and gave him the pixie sticks. The son put it in his mouth. He complained about how it tasted, and they say Ronald gave him some Kool-Aid to wash it down. Later, just moments later, Timothy ran to the bathroom, said his stomach was hurting with painful cramps. He started to vomit and started convulsing and foaming at the mouth. They said that the father held the boy until he went limp. They said it was overkill. There was enough poison in the pixie sticks to kill a herd of elephants. So anyway,
My God.
like I said, the ambulance did come. They did all this stuff, and they basically come out to find that he was $100,000 in debt. He had taken out the life insurance on him there, so he was about to have like his car repossessed, and anyway, so he had all this stuff, and that's the reason that he did it. But he wanted to play it off like it was a Halloween, one of these Halloween. What am I trying to look for? What's that? Urban legends, myths coming to life. So that's what he did. He did kill his own son. He was executed for his murder. So there is some truth in these stories. So that's the reason it's hard to believe. But in this case, this wasn't something that was true. This was something that he did to make people believe that it was true. So just an interesting story there. If you want to read any more, it's on Crime Wire. You can read about the story of Timothy O'Brien and his father Ronald O'Brien about his death in 1974. So
Wow, that is wild as hell. Yeah, that's there's a special corner in hell, I think, reserved for people like that.
yeah.
I mean, how could you do that to your own child?
Well, the father was looking for a financial way out, and I think he just thought that was the only way he could do it. And it's true, man. We don't talk about it on here, but do you remember the story of was it the West Memphis Five or whatever?
Yes, West Memphis 3.
Okay. So I mean, that's people when they want to believe a story like that, they will believe a story like that, and I think that's what he was trying to angle for, is that I'll get all these people to believe that it was Halloween candy and we should stop Halloween and stuff. But like I said, just one of those.
Well, that's
things.
crazy, but that's even different from what the example I used about razor blades and needles and taking your candy to the X-ray at the hospital. I mean, what he did wouldn't have even.
But
that wouldn't have even showed up.
That has happened, and there are stories about it. So we're going to talk about that in future weeks. But there are stories about razor blades and apples and needles and candy. In fact, the needles and candy happened just like in 2000, 2003. I mean, it hasn't been that long since that happened.
Okay, all right. So that's your terrifying tidbit for the week.
That's it for this week.
All right, so let's move on here. We're going to get into this week's case. And this week we're talking about what is known as the Black Swan Inn. Now, this week's episode was actually suggested by a listener, Matt, from San Antonio, Texas. And most of the information we have on this site came from the website Victoria's BlackSwanInn.com. Victoria's Black Swan Inn has been a home to some of the most prestigious people in San Antonio's history. It's an elegant two-story Greek Revival-style home and sits on a grassy knoll overlooking the meandering Salado Creek in San Antonio. So at this point, Adam, as always, you're going to jump into the history of the Black Swan Inn. So what can you tell us about the history?
So, really interesting story here. From about 500 BC to 1000 AD, the area was the site of Native American encampments. Artifacts from this time can still be found there today. So, one of the big things that we talk about when we talk about different things being haunted, ancient Indian burial grounds, ancient Indian spirits, Native American spirits, that is something that gets talked about quite a bit there. So, artifacts from this time, archaeologists have provided evidence showing that Native Americans once lived in the area where the house currently sits. There have also been signs of a sweat lodge where Native Americans performed rituals. Ancient Indian burial ground is thought to be under the house. So this has the makings of a haunted house just based on that. On September 18th, 1842, the Texas Rifle, under the leadership of Captain John Hayes and Colonel Matthew Caldwell, entered into the battle with Mexican army led by French mercenary Adrian Woll. The Mexicans toppled over 1,600 Texans there. They not only had superior manpower, but they also had heavy artillery, with 200 Cherokee scouts along their mix as well. In numbers, they were far superior and better trained than the assembly of men that Texas was trying to cook up. While Wall marched on, Texas was on fire. The alarm was raised, and the Texans were trying to cobble together a militia to fight Wool's blitzkrieg. Colonel Matthew Caldwell, a veteran of the Texas Revolution and a prisoner of war of Mexico, had just been released from one of the dreadful prisons when he was given the task of expelling Wool's troops. Together, he managed to ring in his suicide mission of about 220 fighters. Caldwell thought he had a snowball's chance in hell of actually scoring a victory at most against such unsurmountable numbers.
So you're saying there's a chance?
That's what he's looking for. He says, you know what, maybe there's a chance. But all he could do was give the Mexicans a black eye and maybe give the Republic a few hours to round up some reinforcements. The plan was simple. He'd send 38 men on horseback, and only the 38 horses were fit for duty. Somehow he would try to lure the contingency of the Mexican army into a choke point along the Salado Creek. The hope was at best 50 men would follow the brave 38. Instead, 200 Mexicans and 40 Cherokees were sent after the 38, and like all overkill, Wolfe followed the spear point personally, commanding a legion of 300 men. That's when a series of mistakes started to dwindle the Mexican superiority. A cluster of skirmishes followed as a frontal attack. Caldwell ambushed the overconfident Mexican flanks. Snipers harassed the Mexican cavalrymen. Guerrilla tactics were employed, and hundreds of Mexican troops started dropping like flies. Over 1,000 Mexicans were assembled across the field, and due to the area calculation, their volleys of muskets and cannon fire never even reached Caldwell's line. After almost 2 days, the Mexicans had no choice but to retreat. They were being massacred, and more importantly, they had overextended their supplies. Wool went back across the borders, and only one Texan, Stephen Jett, lost his life. Caldwell, on September 18, 1842, made a killing field of the soil where the Black Swan Inn now stands. The press house was built on the property after the Civil War. Now, I'm assuming this is not Dak's house. I know we're going back to the Cowboys, but it is in Texas, so maybe it was a little
could be
there. Sebastian Ripstein, born in Switzerland, his family, his wife, her Mikey, and they just call her Betsy. I should just call her Betsy. Ackerman Ripstein was born in Germany, settled the land in 1867. The San Antonio Conservation Society says that they built a stone house barn and a milking barn on the property, which I didn't know they had such thing as a milking barn. It sounds kind of interesting. Anytime I hear the term milking, I always think about meet the fuckers. Fockers.
Wow. Wow. What did you just say?
Meet the Fockers. You have to edit that one out.
That's not what you said, Adam.
Anyway,
that is the first time in the history of this podcast that the F-bomb was dropped.
Well, I apologize. I was trying
to... I am not editing it out.
All right. Well, I apologize. But anyway, so in that movie, he says, "You think you can milk me, Greg?" So anyway, I just think about that anytime we think about a milking barn. Anyway, so maybe it has double meaning there. But anyway, so they built the milking barn, and they named it excuse me, I'm sorry. The German immigrants who were Henry Mahler and Marie Biermann Mahler bought the property then on January 10th, 1887. They built their first house on the property during the same year. They also built a milking barn, and they named it the Blue Bonnet Dairy. Now, I don't know if you know what bluebonnets are or not, but if you're unfamiliar, people from Texas know it's a common wildflower that grows in Texas. The only reason I really know that, when I was a kid, they used to have a bowl game called the Bluebonnet Bowl. I know there's like, in that name of a, I was going to say soap.
Some kind of food product. Yeah, I thought it was butter, but I wasn't sure.
I thought it's butter too. But anyway, and Bluebonnet Dairy, I wonder if there's some relationship to that. But anyway, the Mahlers ran the dairy farm here until the 1930s. After the Mahler's wife passed away, he followed suit 2 years later, and he died from being lovesick from his wife's death there. After the Mahlers...
What a loser.
Well, don't say that. You don't know what it is like to lose a wife. You don't know how that is. So.
Have you lost your wife?
I haven't. She's just in the other room right now, but so I know exactly where she is. Catherine S. Jolene Holbrook and Joseph John Younger Holbrook, along with Mary Blanche Jolene Woods and Claude B. Woods, purchased the property together. The sisters called the house White Gables. They conducted extensive remodeling, adding 2 wings to enlarge the mansion to accommodate the 2 families. The house is called White Gables after they purchased more land. The second house was built in 1901. That house later burnt down. Attorney Hall Park Street Jr. and Jolene Woods Street, they inherited the house in 1952 from Jolene's mother, Claude Woods. After the deaths of Mr. and Mrs. Holbrook and Mr. Woods, Miss Woods lived in the house with her son-in-law Park and her daughter Jolene. During this time, a second story was added to the main house. While Park and Jolene owned the property, Earl Stanley Gardner visited the house and wrote some of his famed Perry Mason television scripts here.
Nice.
Yeah. So just all hyper relations there. So Jolene died of breast cancer in 1959. Park Jr. was later found dead in 1965, hung by the neck with hung by a necktie with his hands behind his back. The death was ruled a suicide. They were also survived by their daughter, whose name was Jolene again. So just that name Jolene just getting carried throughout the family.
Makes me think about Dolly.
Jolene.
Dolly Parton, man. Dolly Parton.
I know who you're talking about. I was singing the song, Jolene. I'm not going to keep singing.
No, go ahead.
No, I'm good. Anyway, so this Jolene, they called her Jingles. Maybe she liked to sing. So she was only 19 when he committed suicide, and their son Hall Park, the street the third. So later on, George Marin and Ingeborg Marin bought the house on September 7th, 1973 from Hall Street Park III. Jolene S. husband and her husband, James Patrick Robson. The Marins renamed it the Marin House. The house was remodeled. It included a large kitchen area to hold larger dinners, conferences, and receptions. Ingeborg had a distinguished guest, Franz William, the Prince of Prussia, who stayed at the house during an extended stay in San Antonio. Ingeborg later planned to use the property for the Marin House subdivision as well as the Solido investment. In 1980, the Marins sold the property to E. Warner Smith. Ernest Warner Smith sold the property to Sunbelt Self Storage in 1987. Sunbelt Self Storage sold the property to the current owner, Joanne Marks Andrews, now Joanne Marks Riviere, on November the 18th, 1991. She named the house Victoria's Black Swan Inn after one of William Shakespeare's favorite pubs. The house is Joanne and her family's private residence. Joanne's mother, Faye Nell Marks, spent a lot of time in the house and passed away in the bedroom after an illness. It continues to be a venue for weddings, the Black Swan Artisan Market, a paranormal investigation, historic tours, and several other types of social events throughout the year, including the annual masquerade ball held in honor of Joanne's mother each fall. So a very detailed and interesting history about the Black Swan Inn. Just really, really in depth there about the different things that it has. One of the things when I read this that I was really impressed with was the amount of owners it's gone throughout the years. It seems like every 10 to 15 years the house is sold and something happens. I do wonder, one of the things that was sold to Sunbelt Self Storage, which I'm assuming is like what we call them, storage units or something like that. And it never said anything about those being built there, so I wonder if they bought the plan and they were going to do that. Then maybe due to the Indian burial ground, they decided not to build self-storage there. But I don't
think you should build anything on an Indian burial ground.
I agree with you.
You're just asking for trouble.
Absolutely.
But they did that here at the Black Swan Inn. So let's talk about that. So the home has had several paranormal investigators visited over the years. In December of 1996, the television show Sightings. It filmed a segment at Victoria's Black Swan Inn. The house was also featured in the Travel Channel's TV series Ghost Adventures in 2013. Now, you just mentioned it, or one of us I guess I just mentioned it, about the Indian burial ground. Let's talk about that. At the nearby Salado Creek, there have been reports over the years of Native American apparitions that have scared off children fishing for invading their land, often accompanied by either a faint drumming sound or the scent of smoke. As well, there have been at least one claim of spectral soldiers in Texan and Mexican uniforms continuing the battle that ended on the bloody day in 1842. Sometimes it's said that you can hear the sound of an old military bugle being played, or you might even see the ghost of a lone Confederate soldier milling around the Black Swan Inn's gazebo. So actually inside the house, you talked about Park Street. Supposedly he committed suicide by hanging himself in the house, though this has been a highly controversial subject. Now, there was a psychic consultant with Sci-Fi's television program Sightings that supposedly communicated with the former resident, Hall Park Street, whom he believed was actually murdered in a south wing closet and then moved to another location where the murderer made the death look like a suicide. They believe that Street was killed because of a treasure that he still guards in the south wing, and he still guards it as a ghost, is what's being implied here. And others believe that Heinrich Mahler's ghost drove Park to commit suicide. So there's some that believe that the haunting of Heinrich Mahler, the ghost of him, actually pushed Park to the point of taking his own life. As is often the case with the structure of such history, the vast majority of the reported paranormal activity has centered around the main house. Now, occurrences such as temperature dips, unexplained noises, and lights being turned off and on unexpectedly are not unheard of, but it is the ghostly figures that stalk the halls of this house that is truly terrifying to people. A young woman in a white gown, often believed to be the spirit of Jolene's mother, Mrs. Woods. She's been seen on numerous occasions sitting on a bed in an upstairs room while Jolene herself has been viewed wandering the property, aimlessly searching for that which no one knows. Given the intense and loving relationship with her husband, it's often believed that she is forever searching for Hall, her husband. Now, a less benevolent specter is of a man occasionally seen angrily stalking the grounds. He's often believed to be the spirit of Hall Park Street. Could he still be raging over the circumstances of his death? Is he perhaps possessive of a legendary treasure that he supposedly still guards? Is he perhaps still searching for his lost love, Jolene? No one seems to know for sure, though a feeling of a great sense of tragedy in their presence has been reported by some, as the spirits of Hall and Jolene never seem to find one another in their endless searching. Adam also talked about the dairy farm. So another paranormal hotspot of the Black Swan Inn would be the old dairy farm of Heinrich, he went by Henry, Mahler. There was a trio of male ghosts that have been seen there throughout the years, frequently making loud noises and once having been recorded on EVP as having said, "Get out." A large man... Do what?
Maybe they were milking.
I guess so, and they didn't want nobody in there while they were doing it. So there's a large man that's been seen in the upper window from time to time, and a general feeling of hostility has been known around the old barn. So while it's a place to definitely visit, it's perhaps not one where you'd wish to stay for an extended period of time. Now this large man's ghost is a figure that appears to have a head, arms, and what looks like to be wearing a tank top, a wife beater of all things. And he looks down at people through a window on the thermal imaging camera. He also makes loud noises. So the barn that still stands to this day is the location where Henry ran his prized dairy. And many believe that Henry still haunts the barn as well because he loved it so much. Now, there's also some child ghosts on the property. There's a number of ghostly children that are known to call the grounds home. Heinrich's daughter, Sarah Mahler, she's been said to play around and frequently jump on the house's beds. Of course, typical child, she runs around and wants to jump on the beds. Hell, I still do that to this day. Sophia Louise Myers. Sophia Louise Mahler Myers. It's a mouthful.
Yep.
She may have died in the house as an 82-year-old spinster, but is said to haunt the house as an 8-year-old girl fond of singing and playing pranks on the living. But, they say you shouldn't take it personally. She just likes to play. Now, the specters of children have also been reported to frequently move objects around, occasionally pinching and biting people, or throwing loud tantrums. Now, that's kind of crappy. The children are biting people?
That's what children do.
Do they?
Yeah.
My child bites somebody, they get their ass beat.
Yeah. Well, not everybody does. My daughter was bit in school one time in like 4th grade, man.
And you didn't beat her ass for that?
Well, my daughter didn't bite somebody. Somebody bit her.
Oh, I missed that. I'm sorry. But otherwise, aside from the biting and the pinching and the tantrums, they are relatively a benign presence and even sometimes described as a playful presence within the Black Swan Inn. Now, in 2015, an event was being set up, and there were several strange, unexplained occurrences that happened. One person was bitten and bruised on the inner thigh by an unseen toddler through a long, heavy dress. Another person was pinched by a little girl and boy ghosts. Objects were randomly relocated throughout the woods when no one was around. So you got a damn toddler ghost going up biting people in the crotch.
Well, at least it's not a monkey performing sexual acts on
Well, at least there's no monkey masturbating in there. That's true. You got to go back to Athelhampton Hall if you want to know more about that. But I don't know. I don't want no toddler biting me on the damn thigh. My God, that child needs his ass beat. You don't bite people on the thigh. You don't bite people anywhere.
Yeah. Well, some people like it just depending where they're at. So.
Well, that's all I have on the haunting. There's a lot going on there, especially with some evil-ass children. What's your initial thoughts here, Adam?
So, as I said when I went over the history, there is a ton of history here. And I want to say thank you to the listener for giving this to us because this is one of the places that we look. So, thank you, Matt. Like I said, it's
Matt from San Antonio.
We really appreciate it because this was really in depth and had a lot of information on it. And I'll admit, I don't know if you'd heard of this place before, but I'd never heard of it before.
No, I had not.
To our attention. So, thank you once again, Matt. But like I said,
we don't get a lot of stories with biting toddler ghosts.
Well, we get different stories every week. We've had Cardi B wanting to do that, but biting toddlers is a new one. I'd never heard of biting toddlers before this story, but now I can say I have. So this place is history, so detailed, so rich. It is one of those things that I think, man, this is really, really strange that there is such a rich paranormal history here. You have everything from the native burial grounds, you have the murders or suicides, the deaths that happen there. You've had stuff in terms of places being burnt down. There's a lot of information going around this house here, which is hard to overlook. Like, just the fact that it's probably an Indian burial ground and the amount of Native American history that's there probably wants you to be in that this is a haunted place. Then you got the history, you got everything that we've talked about from the different people in the dairy barns to the street child, or the street, Hall Park Street committing suicide or being murdered or whatever happened there. Well,
hey, what do you think? Do you think he was murdered or did he kill himself?
I don't know. The person there says he thinks he was murdered. And I will say this, I don't know. Now, I know back during this time, maybe ties were constructed better. I don't know if I could take a necktie I have today and tie it, and I don't know if I could strangle myself with it. I think most of them would rip today just because of the material that they are. Now, back then, maybe stronger silk or something like that wouldn't rip as easy, but I have a hard time believing that you're able to choke yourself with your own necktie. But
Yeah, but Adam, the other little detail that you're not talking about is he was found not only hung by a necktie, but his hands were tied behind his back.
well,
That's
not-
interesting. I mean,
that's
if you're
not
going to
the
kill
way
yourself.
That's not what I understood it. I understand his hands were just behind his back, like holding the necktie.
No, his hands were tied behind his back.
Okay, well, I missed that part when we went through and read about it, or when I read it. I thought it when I read it. I was saying like his hands were behind his back. I see where you say his hands were tied behind his back, but I was thinking like neck tied behind it. I don't know what I was thinking. I was thinking like he was taking like with it behind, like in my mind he wrapped the necktie around his hands and like pulled it like that so it wouldn't come loose. I guess is what I was thinking. I wasn't thinking like hands tied behind his back like that, because it was hung by a necktie with hands tied behind his back. Okay, I get what you're saying now. So, yeah, that is weird from that standpoint there. But, like I said, just overall, lots of things that tie into it to the point of it's probably haunted. And, that's just one of these things that when we come to these places, we always want to look at them and see what they say. And we want to look at the history. We want to look at the tragedies and things like that. And I think this place has it all.
Well, I agree with you. And I also agree with you. Thanks to Matt for suggesting this. And I want to go ahead and encourage any of the listeners out there, if you've got a good one in your area that you can recommend to us, please do so, because this was a good one. So at this point, Adam, before we get any deeper into this, why don't you go ahead and explain our rating systems or our rating system. I'm sorry. Did I say I've drank too much tonight?
Yeah, you said it a couple of times.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry. I've drank too much. Go ahead and explain our ratings system so we can rate this thing.
What we have is a believability scale. How believable is this haunting? Do we think it's haunted? Do we believe the people that are saying things there? So on and so forth. So our believability scale is on a 1 to 5 scale. 1 is at the bottom, 5 is at the top. So 1 is the least believable, 5 is the most believable. So 1 is what we call do not believe at all. We don't believe that this place is haunted. We don't believe the stories are true. None of that. Absolutely not. That's a 1. 2 is we have reasonable doubt if it is believable. There's some things that are happening there that make us question, but we have reasonable doubt if they're really happening, or people are putting on, or people are putting out rumors that they've heard throughout the years. We have some questions about whether or not it's believable. Number 3 is not enough intel to make a good judgment. That means that we believe that there are some things that probably lead us to it, but there's also some things that cause questions in our mind, and we can't say yes or no. 4 is there's not enough reasonable doubt. We believe it's haunted. There's not enough things to make us say it's not haunted, but there's some things that we question. Why does this happen? Why does that happen? One of the things I always say, maybe the Warrens are involved, and that causes some controversy there. And the last one's fully believed. We have no question, no doubt in our mind, based on the information we have, based on the information reviewed, that this place is haunted. So I usually go first with my ranking, and I'm going to tonight as well. And Matt, you really hit the nail on the head with this one. I think this is a 5. From what I've read, from what I looked at when we went through and read through the parts there, I believe this place is haunted. The Indian burial ground, the violent deaths, the different things that have happened in that area, it meets all those criteria that I usually look when I look for a place that is haunted. So I'm giving this one a 5. I fully believe this place is haunted.
Okay, that's interesting. So I'll just jump right to it. I'm going to give it a 4. I think that you got ghostly toddlers biting people in the crotch. I really want to believe that. I'm not quite 100% convinced, but I want it to be true. And there's a lot of there was just so many different stories. You had all kinds of stuff from the dairy farm to the as I said, the biting toddlers. You've got the house was built on a Native American burial ground. There's a lot going on here for us to just discount this thing as, I mean, I just can't go lower than a 4. So you take our average as 4.5. We absolutely believe that the Black Swan Inn is haunted. And I kind of got the feeling from Matt's email that he believes that it's haunted as well. So this would be a place that if you want to visit it and see if something will happen, or you want to have some sort of paranormal experience, this would be a place that we'd recommend that you visit. So that's it for the Black Swan Inn. What kind of do you have any closing thoughts, Adam, on this?
No, just like I said, I think it's haunted definitely, just based on the history, the different things there. The fact that this place has been, even, thousands of years for the Native American stuff, the last 150 years it's been haunted. People have seen things and done things like that. So I just think there's a lot of evidence here to say that this place is haunted. So very interesting there if you get a chance. They do paranormal tours there. So you can go out there and visit those people and see what they say and see if you have an experience. If you have experience, let us know. Send us we are on Instagram. Send us something, say, hey, I've been here, I've seen it before. Or if you go out there and you do have an experience, get back and say, hey, I went out here based on your episode and I saw this happen here. So that's something that you can do there, and just get back with us or email us at theghostcasters@gmail.com, and we'd be happy to hear from you. And if you experience stuff like that, reach out. If it's because of this episode, let us know, and we'll tell Matt, say, hey, Matt, you're getting more people around. You're getting out to the Black Swan for their paranormal experiences out there.
So what do you think the chances are, Adam, that it's not a toddler, but it's a dwarf like Warwick Davis biting people in the crotch?
I think that's slim to none, but I think that'd almost be like the monkey. If you said, well, what if that's not a monkey, that's a child up there masturbating?
No, people could see it's a damn monkey, Adam. Well, I think people just feel the bite and they assume it's a toddler.
That a dwarf walking around biting somebody would probably be an even more outlandish story than a child walking around and doing it.
Okay, I guess that's a good point.
All
right, look, we appreciate everybody for listening. As Adam said, you can email us at theghostcasters@gmail. You can follow us on Instagram at theghostcasters, and you can see pictures of a lot of the places that we talk about, some of the news stories we talk about. You can find pictures and video on our Instagram page. Give you a little more information. So I think that's it for this week. We appreciate everybody listening. Everybody have a good week, and hopefully we will be back next week for an all-new haunting on Ghostcasters Podcast.